Stories of hope where hearts connect. Side effects may include joy, advocacy, and inclusion too. You're listening to The Inclusion Effect, sharing love, strength, and respect. Side effects may include joy, advocacy, and inclusion for me and you.
Hello and welcome to The Inclusion Effect. I'm Anna and I'm here to talk with guests and with all of you about disability advocacy, inclusion, and the ups and downs of navigating a world that frankly isn't always built for the disability community. Today's guest here with me is Stephanie Schnitzline. Thanks for being here, Stephanie.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Do you want to kind of introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you, your family, how you're in this world.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Stephanie. For me personally, I am first and foremost mom, mental health clinician, worked my whole career doing mental health support for kids and families, and now transitioned to adults and parents. I have a family of 4, myself, my husband, our oldest son, Orion, he's 9, and then my youngest son, Odin, has Down syndrome, he's 7.
Awesome. Okay. And I know you because we met at a mom's retreat a couple years ago.
Yes.
But the reason, I don't even know if you know this actually, I was in the pool with a bunch of moms in Vegas and I was talking about some of the stuff I do on social media. Back then I didn't have a podcast, but I was talking about some of the stuff I do on social media and a couple of moms were like, "Oh my gosh, have you met Stephanie?" And I was like, "Who is Stephanie? What are we talking about?" And they're like, "You have to meet her. She does so much social media stuff too." And then they brought me over to you in the So that's the backstory of it. They're like, "You have to connect with her." And then I think we added each other on Facebook from there. Do you want to tell me how you kind of got into like the social media advocacy, what your journey's been like?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that memory.
It was very cute.
Felt like a little celebrity, which was kind of exciting. So way back when, all the way back to our diagnosis story, I had a pretty traumatic experience learning about Odin's diagnosis. It was prenatal. Not a supportive doctor, not a supportive genetic counselor, not a lot of support. And so I went on my own and started researching and looking up like what kind of support is out there. I found DSDN. That was my lifeline at the time. This was back in 2018. And connected with other moms who were also pregnant and on the journey and trying to figure out which way's up, right? Because the rug gets pulled out from under you. And so that's when I realized this way of connecting with others was uplifting. It was supportive. It was connecting. I didn't feel so isolated. I didn't know anyone in my immediate circle that had a child with Down syndrome. And so it was very confusing and very lonely. So that was really helpful. And then the next thing that happened, which was a huge negative global impact, but the side effect was positive, was COVID.
Yes.
So COVID hit. All of our kids in my birth group at that time were 2 or turning 2. And we were all of a sudden going from trying to do play dates and school and, preschool and stuff like that to you can't go anywhere. You need to stay home. At the time, we were living in Northern California, the San Francisco Bay Area. And we had some really bad wildfires that were occurring in the area. And so not only were we stay at home, we were now stay inside because of the air quality and conditions. And that was really, really scary for all of us.
Was that in 2020?
Yeah, that was in 2020.
I'm in Oregon and we actually were displaced by those fires also.
Yeah.
I was pregnant with my middle child then, yeah.
Yeah. So it was just kind of one thing after another of like, okay, you're feeling isolated, now more so. And now even more so, we couldn't even go outside for a chunk of time. And so I was trying to figure out normalcy in our households. I created a homeschooling routine and tried to come up with our stuff in our day to keep our sanity and try and keep the kids busy and try and keep them learning. It was just kind of chaos during that time. The thing that grounded me, the thing that helped me was connecting with the moms via social media. And so the whole thing started by a viral video. I mean, you might remember these. I think it was a TikTok video where these moms were in their mirror in their bathrooms getting ready, and they would drop a hairbrush and it would bounce down into
Yep.
someone else's like lap, and then they would, bop the screen, and then they'd be all dolled up, and then they'd drop the hairbrush. And I was like, I want to do that, but different. And so we created a video where I called it hot potato with our kids. And so I told all the parents, video your kids sitting at their high chair, and drop a pair of socks onto the top of their high chair. And then the kid would grab the socks and drop it down. And so I just linked all those clips together, made a long video, and then shared. And they were shared hundreds, if not thousands of times.
And I know why, and I think most people listening probably know why, but do you want to tell people why socks?
Yes. Well, okay. So the actual theory and reasoning behind that was because I needed something that everyone had. So that was
Of course.
one of the pieces. But the socks also, for World Down Syndrome Day, socks represent the chromosomes. They look like wild and crazy socks. However, in the video, we all just did white socks because I wanted it to look continuous. But yes, there's
totally
that there as well.
That's so cool.
So in making that video, I realized I got a creative outlet. I had a way to connect. The moms loved it. I didn't realize how much people were going to love this. And I got that little thrill of like, I'm making something and I'm sharing and getting to kind of connect with the world. It just kept expanding. I found a lot of creativity and like motivators through music. So different songs that are out there. I was like, oh, that really speaks to me. I really like that song. And then we would make a video to it. And so to date, I can't count how many videos I've made, but it's definitely over 30. It's probably close to 50 different videos for different focuses, all related to advocacy and just kind of sharing our journeys and our kids and the beautiful things they can do and the lives we lead. So that's how
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Okay, and let's back up a little bit. So you had a prenatal diagnosis and you did not have a supportive doctor, which is so unfortunate. I'm so sorry. I also found the DSDN pregnancy group, and it was also a huge lifeline during my prenatal diagnosis. So I love that we have that in common. DSDN truly is so amazing, such a great resource. So are you comfortable sharing about your diagnosis?
Yeah, absolutely.
How you felt, how you found out?
Yeah, I've actually had a lot, I don't want to say experience because that seems weird, but I've had a lot of opportunities to share about it. And it's been very cathartic. It's been very therapeutic for me. I would encourage anyone who has kind of that residual PTSD, traumatic response, really heavy feelings to talk about it. Saying that with the mental health plug.
Yes,
but
I love hearing that.
Yeah,
I agree.
Personally, just recognizing it's pulled me through some of those heavy feelings to be able to process. So yes, very comfortable talking about it. So it was I'm going to start the story the week before. We went on a baby moon to Hawaii with my oldest son.
Cute.
And I was 20 weeks pregnant. We were planning on having the 20-week prenatal scan, the big anatomy scan, the like 2 days after we got back from our trip. And so I remember one night we were standing over the ocean. The sun was setting. It was gorgeous. And we were taking family pictures. And I remember I told my husband, just think our lives are never going to be the same again. And I don't say stuff like that anymore.
Little did you know.
No. So that happened. And I always remember that moment. So then I'm in the doctor's office and it's the lab tech. And, I'm a very friendly, chatty person and I'm engaging with the tech, making jokes, trying to make light. It's a little uncomfortable. I'm cold. I'm laying on my back, all the things. And she's chatting with me and joking until she's not. And she stops and it gets quiet. And I just started feeling kind of uncomfortable. I was like, I'm feeling like something might be wrong. She also mentioned that he was kind of laying in this very awkward, the fetal position is curled and kind of hunched. And she said he was laying with his neck kind of back. And I was like, is that normal? Is that okay? That's weird, right? Like something's weird about that. Obviously techs aren't allowed to say anything. So she didn't say. But I remember I noticed she was getting quiet and not responding. And so I just got quieter and it took a really long time. It just kept dragging out She finally said, okay, I'm going to have the doctor come in and talk to you. And I was like, okay, something was wrong. And I didn't know what was going on. The doctor came in, had horrible bedside manner. He did his exam and he was and I was tired at this point. And so he was pushing on my stomach and he was hurting me. And I was like, ow, please stop pushing so hard. He was trying to get a picture of different things. And he just turned to me and he said, okay, we've located a mass called a cystic hygroma. It's on the back of the neck with, it was so matter of fact. He was just like, and this and this and this and this and this, connected to things like Noonan syndrome, Turner syndrome, or Down syndrome. And I was, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Like, I needed him to slow down. And I said, I don't understand. What are you saying? What are you telling me? And he repeated himself exactly, like verbatim, no explanation, no like, maybe this person doesn't understand me. Let me try to explain it a different way. He didn't. He said exactly the same words. He said, I'm going to refer you to genetic counseling, and walked out of the room. And I was sitting there still covered in goo, now crying, now going, what is happening? Like, is everything okay? Like, what are these syndromes? What is happening? My husband was in there with me. He was just confused. And I was just kind of shocked and scared. We were immediately whisked into the genetic counselor's office. And I hear the word counselor. And so I'm like, oh, we're going to talk. We're going to have a conversation. This is going to be helpful and she's going to be supportive. And I don't remember the entirety of the conversation, but the one thing that stands out was that she said, you have to decide. You have a week to decide. And I was like, what do you mean decide? What are you talking about? She's like, well, in California, you have until 22 weeks to decide to terminate. And I was like, we're here for the scan. He's still alive, right? Like, we're okay. And I remember I told her, as long as this baby's healthy, which is that message that all parents say, like, I don't care if it's a boy or girl, as long as the baby's healthy. So that was like that message ingrained in me to say that. And her response was, well, that depends on what your definition is of healthy.
Yeah.
And that hit me like a rock. I was just like, is this child not going to be compatible with life? That's what I interpreted. Like, is he not going to survive? And so then I was just like, are we making a decision that's not a good one? Do we need to decide? Like, it just, and there was this huge, like, time limit barreling down on us with all this new information.
Yeah.
The week actually got worse, shockingly, because we got a call back that they didn't get a good scan of the heart and they wanted us to come back. And I said, I will come back. I do not want that doctor in the room.
Good for you.
Doctor. He's not allowed to be in the room with me ever again.
Good for you.
So we had a different doctor, and she was really nice. However, she got very concerned because she couldn't get a good reading of the heart, and so she was getting concerned. They had worries that he was developing what's called hypoplastic left heart syndrome, which is where the left side of the heart doesn't grow, and can be fatal, and it can lead to a lifetime of surgeries. So that was really scary. And we were planning on doing the gender reveal party that Saturday. So we learned this information on Monday. We went back on Wednesday for the heart scan and learning about the hypoplastic left heart syndrome on Wednesday. And then on Friday, we went to a cardiologist to do a special scan to find out, like, is he going to make it? Like, that's where I was at this point.
Yes. Yeah.
And then I remember that doctor told me, like, maybe you should cancel your gender reveal party. So there was no support. There was no, like, let's take care of you. Let's help you process. Let's be here for you. Let's do any of this. So we get to Friday and I'm pretty beside myself with just spinning. Down syndrome was the highest probability, but they were also saying that could be these other two possible syndromes as well. Friday we get there, we talk to the cardiologist. He was the best doctor I've had in the early stages of the journey. He was like, why are you here? What are we looking for? Tell me everything. I was still very anxious and tearful and all worked up. And so had me lay down. He went specifically to look for the thing with the heart developing. And I remember within minutes, he said, okay, I'm going to tell you the thing that you're worried about is not existent. That's not happening. There's still more things I need to look at. There's more measurements I need to take, but I want to let you know that's not something you have to worry about. And so I felt like I could breathe. He finished his exam, and I remember we left the room and we got into the elevator, and my husband and I just hugged and we're like, let's have a baby. Whatever. Like,
Yeah.
we've been through this roller coaster and he's going to be okay. We didn't know it was a he yet, but they were
Yeah.
going to be okay. And we had
Wait, at the anatomy scan, they didn't tell you the
they didn't,
anatomy? They
the
they
whole
didn't
plan.
finish it?
No, they did. The whole plan was I wanted, the thing where you have them.
Oh, a surprise.
We were going to do a cake. And so I had them put it in the envelope. I took it to a bakery. I said, please make this cake and do the color inside. We're going to do a surprise. So we all get surprised. So I didn't know at the time.
I see. Okay.
So that was Friday. And then Saturday we had the party. And so I was convinced that it was going to be a girl and that it was going to be a different syndrome called Turner syndrome, which specifically impacts girls.
Yeah.
And so then we did the cake cutting and it was blue. And so I was like, well, my theory's out the door. I don't know what's going to happen. And I went back for blood work, and then they suggested the amnio. My husband rejected it and said, she doesn't do good with needles. We don't need more stress on her.
It's a big needle too.
Yeah. Let's just do the blood work. And so I did the blood work and it came back a week later, and they called and confirmed it was Down syndrome. So there was a lot of just like self-work and trying to figure out which way is up and what am I doing and what do I need? And, I was definitely all over the place for that chunk of time. And then for several weeks afterwards, there was a lot of grieving, a lot of just sadness and the why me. I know a lot of people talk about that and just what is happening. But I remember at one point when we were talking about like making a decision that I turned to my husband and I was like, this kid needs us. He needs us to be there for him. And that's my job. Like, I'm going to take care of him and that's what I'm going to do. And there was no other decision to be made at that point. That was, we were in it to take care of him.
Yeah. I love that. And your older son, Orion, was only like 2 at the time, right?
Yeah.
So he had no idea. So he's always grown up with Odin just as he is.
Yes. Yeah.
And was Odin born with a congenital heart defect?
He was actually born with 3. We actually didn't find out until he was a month old.
Wow.
Looking back after, so we saw the cardiologist prenatally 2 more times, and he said, heart looks good. There are some things that could develop after birth, just to let you know, but there wasn't any big concerns on his side. When Odin was born, we did all the testing, we did all the things, and they did not look at his heart. And I don't know why, I don't know how that happened, that we were released without it.
I'm shocked.
I am shocked.
2018 was not that, like, it's not like you have, a 30-year-old child or something. That was 7 years ago in California too.
Yeah. I don't know how that
happened.
Wow. It was not on our radar. And
you don't know what you don't know, but the doctors do.
Right. And should have. And that's one of the things they suggest as one of the steps to release is doing that.
Yeah. Wow.
So I don't know how it happened, but we were released without. He was born at 39 weeks. He came all on his own. Born vaginally, no issues. He actually started contractions at 2 a.m, and he was born at 7 a.m. So it was really
He was ready.
He was ready. And he was perfect. He didn't need oxygen. He didn't have feeding issues. He didn't have breathing issues. He didn't have any trouble. The only thing that he struggled with for a couple hours was regulating his body temperature, which they figured out. And then he had some mild jaundice that we addressed very quickly. But so fast forward to his 1-month appointment, his pediatrician noticed a heart murmur. We went back to the cardiologist and he discovered he had 2 holes in his heart, a I don't remember the acronyms now. I'm forgetting what they are.
VSD and ASD, probably.
Thank you. He had one of each of those.
I'm closer to it all happening. I only have a 3-year-old.
And his aortic arch, the aorta is the largest valve. Instead of it being curved, he said it went squiggly up and down.
Interesting.
And then got narrow at one end, which is the concern for that is that valve goes to all of your lower extremities and can cause a lot of problems if that blood flow is not enough.
Huh, okay.
So huge concern. We were planning on traveling a month later to my brother's wedding. And so he had to go back multiple times. He's like, I need to make sure these are stable They are not needing medical or surgical intervention at this point in time, but we need to make sure things aren't changing dramatically to clear you to fly.
Yes, yeah.
Things were okay. That was another scary chunk of time because it was unexpected. We didn't know. We thought things were okay. And I waited for that whole year, first year of his life, to be told, okay, we're going to do surgery. Both of the holes closed on their own.
Wow,
No
that's
intervention.
amazing.
And
Wow.
the aorta still is apparently very unique shaped. However, cardiology still follows him to this day. They've
Hmm.
spread out the appointments much farther because his heart is growing as he does. So that narrowing is much less of a concern than it was when he was first born.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Going from expecting him to have HLHS, hypoplastic, half left heart syndrome. Oh my gosh. To that is, wow, that is just night and day. That's amazing. Okay. And then it's worth noting that that was all happening during COVID. So the fact that you went from during this time where there's like a pandemic due to a respiratory illness and you think you might have a baby who has holes in his heart needing heart surgery to being like, oh, it took care of itself. Was that just like whiplash?
I think the whole experience was whiplash for sure.
Fair,
You know,
fair.
learning, especially as I learned additional things and more concerns and other medical comorbidities, it was like, which of these things are going to happen? Which of these things are going to impact him? And I had lots of moms in the mommy group who were dealing with major medical issues. There were several kiddos in our group that have since passed away. Just a lot. And so it's always this balance of how do I learn and be informed and be prepared for the what ifs, but not overstress about it and not let it take over.
Yeah.
And so it does feel like whiplash all the time. Like, oh God, we have to prepare. Oh, okay. Is that not going to happen to us? And then something else happens to us that we're not expecting, like finding out he had heart defects that we didn't even know existed because they didn't do the testing before we left.
Yeah.
So it is a lot of just, okay, let's prepare for what we don't know is coming.
Yeah, I completely understand that. Addie had some pretty, I don't want to say rare, but not expected issues. She had a cardiac arrest when she was an infant. And yeah, and she had some pretty unexpected complications that actually wasn't, she still has an unrepaired ASD. She'll need surgery eventually, but she has not had it yet. She had an unrepaired ASD that actually wasn't even the cause of the cardiac arrest. And so I remember when she was just a little baby, I was joining all these groups. I was trying to reach out to people, and nobody had stuff going on like what Addie had going on. To this day, she still is a very rare little girly as far as her medical complexities go. She's one in a trillion. But once Addie got healthier and more stable, I had to leave a lot of the groups, and I've since rejoined a few of them, like the the DSD and Heart Warriors group. That was one that I've rejoined since. But I had to leave them because, similar to what you're saying, I was just like, is that what's going to be next? Is the other shoe going to drop? Or what these kids are experiencing, what these parents are experiencing, is that what we're going to be facing in a month, a year, 10 years? It was too much anxiety. I couldn't handle it. So I get it. It's hard to find a balance between worrying, being informed, and like driving yourself mad with anxiety.
Yeah, for sure. It is. And it's an unfair path that we have to or a tightrope that we have to walk every single day.
Yeah, I would say, and I talk about this kind of often on my TikTok, is that when you have a typical child, nobody sits you down and gives you a big list of this could happen and this could happen and this could happen, even though it's true. Any child could get sick. Lots of CHDs, congenital heart defects, 1 in 100 kids are born with them. They're very common. But you don't sit down and say, hey, you just had a beautiful baby boy. He's healthy. He's neurotypical as far as we know. He's not disabled at the moment. And this could all happen. Here's a big list of things you should worry about. That's just not a thing. And so we have a lot of extra hats we have to wear. We have to research these things. We have to deal with our own anxiety. We have to be aware, but not overly stressing our kids out, ourselves out, our spouses out. It's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
And do you feel like your career as a mental health professional, a therapist, has uniquely kind of prepared you for some of these struggles?
That's such a good question. I definitely have my own anxieties and my own stuff that I work through. Any mental health professional worth their weight will say that, because no one's perfect. We're not superhuman. I think honestly, it's been a balance of it helping me and hindering, because my the field that I worked in, especially in the earlier parts of my career, I worked with kids. I worked with children on the spectrum, the autism spectrum, learned a lot about that world. I was 100% convinced that once I had kids, I was going to have a child with autism. I was just like, I
Yeah.
feel like the world is preparing me for this. And I was waiting for that. And it was like, oh, just kidding. Here's what you're going to deal with. So it's just interesting. There's pieces that I feel prepared for. One of the best parts that I appreciate is that I worked with kids in school settings as the counselor in the room, as the supportive person, pairing with the parents and supporting the teachers and staff, and all for the purpose of like supporting the kid. And so I was at that side of the table professionally. And then I realized, oh, I'm going to be on the other side of that table. Now, Odin's in elementary school, and I'm on that side of the table, receiving the feedback from the teachers and the support people about my kid and what his needs are, and receiving that. And so knowing how I presented from the therapeutic perspective and utilizing that tool to be a receiving parent and trying not to receive it all emotionally, which is really, really, really hard to do, but also recognizing, they're not out to get my kid. No one's an adversary. We're not coming to this room to fight or have an issue. We're trying to work together. So I feel like that's helped the most so far, is just knowing that other side is not I'm against you just because it's the other side of the table.
Yeah. I've talked to a handful of people on this podcast who previously worked in settings where they also were on the other side of the table as IEP advocates, teachers, aides, etc. And that's the first time I've heard that unique perspective. So I really appreciate that. That, the people on both sides of the table are doing their best within the constraints of their job, their capabilities, everything, and that they're not against you and your kid, even if it sometimes feels like that. So that's really valuable information. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And now that Odin and Orion are a little bit older, 7 and 9, right? Yeah. How does Orion feel about being the big brother to a sibling who has Down syndrome?
Yeah, I have to say, I think we're so, so lucky. I have some close friends who have kids that are kind of similar in age, and they've shared with me there's been some challenges, some like jealousies or struggles. And I'm not saying Orion's perfect. He's not. But he has so much love for his brother, and it's not a like protective. He's not I've got to protect my brother and keep him safe. Like, that's not his energy. That's not his shtick. But he's just like, he's my brother. They wrestle. He tries to figure out ways to include him. They also have very different interests. So sometimes he's like, go away, I'm doing my own thing. But he has been the epitome of how you accept Odin for who he is. He doesn't try to change him. He doesn't want different for him. He doesn't expect different from him. He's like, that's who he is. I love him because he's my brother, and that's all of him. I remember back when he was much younger, I think Orion was 5 and Odin was 3, that we had a bedtime conversation, and he was so quiet with this conversation. I could just tell he was confused, and he was like, Mommy, I don't understand. When I was 3, I was talking, and Odin's 3. How come he's not talking? And I knew that conversation was coming. We've always explained Odin has Down syndrome. Odin is a little different. Odin learns things differently. These are the things to know. We've always talked about it. So it wasn't an unexpected conversation, but it was a hard conversation. And I remember one of the things he said is there something wrong with him, or what's wrong with him? Something like that. And so we really focused on there's nothing wrong. It's just, he's different. And this is just, the way he interacts with the world is going to look a little different than you might see with other kids. And I think the big eye opener for him was we moved to Austin, and we have good friends who have kids that are almost the same age as our 2 boys. And so the younger brother, who's a little bit younger than Odin, was fully verbal, neurotypical kid. And so Orion finally was like, oh, he's doing this and Odin's not doing that. Why? And that's where I think that whispered for him.
I've never heard anybody else say that exact same thing. My younger two, I have a 10-year-old, she's my stepdaughter. And then I have Liam is 4, he'll turn 5 in January. And then Addie's 3.5, and they're 15 months apart. Liam, the last maybe 6 months, I'd say, so since he's been 4, has been he also has always known that Addie has Down syndrome. That's something that we never I talk about it all the time, like he knows. But he also has been like fixated on her not talking. When babies don't talk, how come Addie talks? She's not a baby, she's a big girl. Like, she's a big girl. And then this year, Liam's been in preschool at a Head Start class, and this year Addie joined him in the same class. And
Oh,
Addie has a one-on because they're so close in age. And Addie
yeah.
has a one-on-one aide, and Addie has a nurse on site because she's tube fed and has some other stuff going on. And she's got all of her therapists to come to see her. Before they started school, I don't think Liam was understanding really. It's hard to conceptualize. I don't think he was understanding she's not talking, and that's something that happens with Down syndrome. Like, those two things weren't going together. He was like, he knew his sissy learns, plays, sometimes thinks differently, and she has Down syndrome, but why isn't she talking? Now that she started school with him, he will tell the other kids she doesn't talk, but she's a big girl and stuff like that. And it's so cute to see them kind of get it.
Yeah.
So I think it's totally appropriate. It makes sense that at 5, Orion was like trying to piece this together, because that seems like a really natural step that are happening when kids are close together in age like our kids are. I
Yeah.
get that
Yeah.
totally. I
And
love that.
also
I love how
just
you handled it.
recognizing the differences that are popping out. Right at that
Yeah.
age, developmentally, kids start seeing physical differences,
Yes.
differences in skin tone, differences in preferences, right? Like favorite colors. That's when you start making friends, because of the things you have in common. And so we naturally notice the things that are different about us. And I think
Yeah.
that's when it stood out to him, like, huh, if he's not supposed to be doing this, why is he doing this?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to navigate that as a parent. You want to make sure that you're giving your child all the tools to handle and understand what's going on with their sibling who is different, while also telling them the truth and giving them the answers in a language that's appropriate. It's hard. It's something nobody teaches you how to handle. So it sounds like you handled it great.
Just learning on the job, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yes. It's a journey. So what has kind of surprised you most about parenting a child with a disability?
So one of the jokes that I've had probably most of my life is my lack of patience. I want, and it's not in all things, but if I am really eager and motivated to do something, like I want an outcome, I want
Yeah.
actions, I want movement. And when I worked way back in the day doing ABA therapy with kids on the spectrum, it's very slow, it's very methodical, it's very tedious to get through to those little steps, those little baby goals. And I remember I did the training. I worked there for a year, and I was like, this isn't what I went to school for. I was much more cerebral and wanted to talk about feelings and process.
Yeah.
That's not what that type of therapy is about. And so I was like, this isn't what I want to do. I need to find something different. But I realized part of that is because I was impatient. Like, I wanted to see the end result. I wanted to get to that product, not the steps too. And I think the surprising thing has been me learning to slow down and not rush it, because you can't rush Odin. You can't. You can't force things when he's not ready. You can't push him to talk when he doesn't feel like it, when he's tired, when he's overwhelmed, when he's overstimulated. So it's really been me learning to practice patience and slow myself down and not put my expectations on him because they're my expectations. Like, he's got his own path, his own journey, and I'm along for the ride. So
Yes.
wrapping my head around that and then learning to accept it, because I still have those moments of frustration where I'm like, come on, can we just get there, please?
Mhm.
But it's going to come when it's time, not on my
Yes.
schedule.
Yes. I love that. I think that's something that most of us walking this journey learned. Definitely, that Welcome to Holland poem that we all know, that kind of encapsulated in real life that Holland's a little bit slower, a
Yeah.
little bit more leisurely,
Yeah.
and we're on their time.
It's
Yeah.
not a bad thing. I think
No.
we really struggle with it being a societal pressure, right? Like, it's
Hmm.
what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be productive. We're supposed to contribute. We're supposed to go, 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 and get results. And that's not conducive to the world of Down syndrome. But it's
No.
that fine line we have to balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of societal pressure, and I know you said that you started in California and then moved to, you said Austin, right,
Yeah.
Texas? Yeah, so actually I'm curious if that's changed between those two places as well. But do you feel, I guess, supported, and I'm sure you feel supported by like your community as in your village, but do you feel supported by the place that you live? Do you feel like, you have supports in place, like school district policies, community in place that
Yeah.
kind of supports anybody
So
with disabilities, really?
yeah. The big answer is no, to be
Hmm.
really honest. It's been a really scary couple years. Um, and it's on multiple levels. So we've got, and I'll be careful with being too political in the situation, but we've got the national level of things changing and just hearing new updates almost daily about things
Yes.
getting changed, things closing, things getting slashed, programs getting canceled. Like that's really scary. On a state level, Texas is one of the lowest when it comes to funding supports for people with disabilities. I will say this doesn't excuse or get away from that struggle. We are really fortunate financially. We don't have to rely on additional outside supports to get Odin the needs, the therapies, the medical supplies, the things that he needs. But a lot of families need all that. Texas has I think it's a 12 to 15-year wait list to get on like a Medicaid waiver to get supports.
And if you don't know, it's okay. But I knew that Texas had a long wait list just from talking with other moms. A lot of moms at the DSD and retreats are from Texas. That's so common.
Yeah.
I have a lot of Texas mom friends. But 10 to 15 years, that encompasses the time in a child with Down syndrome's life where they are most vulnerable to comorbidities that are life threatening. Does that mean that they either pay for private insurance or they're out of luck? And if you don't know, it's okay.
Well, no, I've done a lot of looking into it because it's piqued my
That's
interest
wild, yeah.
and it's impacted a lot. It very much uh, one of the things that I really talk a lot about on my social media is the unfortunate circumstance that we're in, that people are having to move states for the purpose of taking care of their kids because certain states don't provide the supports that their kids need. And so yeah, it is to your question, you're either paying for it privately or you're SOL. I will say they have
Jeez.
shorter wait lists for kids with higher medical needs. So when we first moved, they said, get on all the lists because you don't know down the line, things could change. You don't know
Yeah.
where your situation's going to be. Just get on them. And so Odin's name has come up for a couple of the waivers that he doesn't qualify for because he doesn't have high levels, like you're saying with Addie,
Hmm.
multiple other things. He doesn't have a nurse. He doesn't have additional needs. It's really the um, developmental delays,
Yeah.
the basics, and none of the
No,
basics.
I get it. Yes.
It's
I think
the
anyone that listens to this will understand. Otherwise, I don't know why they're interested in this podcast.
it's the bigger medical stuff. But and those kids, I think those wait lists are shorter. The
Okay.
biggest
I'm glad to
one,
hear that.
the biggest one is the long wait list. And my gut, because I know it all comes down to money, it's all about money and how do we save money and how do we make sure we're not paying for other
Hmm.
people, is they don't want to cover extras for families. Things like additional therapies, more speech therapy than once a week or more physical therapy than once a week, feeding therapy, the tools, the out of network support people, the doctors and the specialists, like all that comes off as extra. And it's so
Yes.
unfortunate because it's not. It's to help these kids have their best opportunity at being the most successful version of themselves that they can be.
Hmm.
And the earlier the intervention, the better. But I think that wait list is as long as it is because then they've aged out of all of that early stuff that's just put on the parents to just take care of themselves. And then once they're older, then the shift is more to, okay, well, do they need a group home setting? Do they need assistance like finding a job or getting out there? It's more independent support, like helping them be independent. But all that early stuff is really just the onus is on the parents. Like, you guys got to figure this out. This is your child. So that's the state level. So personally, like I said, it doesn't impact us. We're really fortunate, but I do know it impacts a lot of parents, and the state of
Yeah.
Texas is challenging and frustrating. We moved specifically for our village. We have really good friends. Some of our best friends live here, and we've met a lot of people that I just feel like they're my people, and I love them. And my heart breaks every day because I'm like, I don't know if this is going to be our forever place. I don't know if we're
Yeah.
going to get the support we need moving forward. So that's a hard place to be in.
Yes.
Locally, we've had even more challenges because our local school district shared. Um, I guess this speaks to the state level. The state of Texas has withdrawn a bunch of its funding support for education for school districts, and they announced that they're short billions of dollars for the budget. As a response, the individual school districts have now had to make the decision about closing schools. Our specific school district, we have 3 elementary schools in our neighborhood, within 4 to 5 miles of each other. And they've been talking about closing one of them. And so this is going to very specifically impact Odin because he's in a class with 10 kids. The class is at capacity. They cannot hold more children. And the other 2 schools have programs that are at capacity as well. So if one of those 3 closes, which is what they're talking about, is one of these 3 schools closing, that's going to shift everything around. And the
Yeah.
supports that Odin is given right now, I don't know if it will look, how dramatically different it will look. I don't know if they'll tell
Yeah.
him he needs to move to a different school to get supports elsewhere. Like, we don't know. So very, very big answer.
It
And
was a
then
great answer.
coming down to the short answer is no, we do not feel supported. There's so much that could be done. And the powers that be that are in control are choosing not to do.
That was a great answer. Yeah, am I am surprised, but I'm also not surprised to hear any of that, unfortunately. Oregon is where I live. One of the it's so ironic, I guess, in a twisted way. Oregon is one of the top schools in the country for disability services and programs. I think number 3 or 4 in the country, top 5, which is amazing. And we've had amazing access. When Addie was born, I knew that me, my husband, and our older 2 didn't qualify for Medicaid. And so I assumed Addie didn't die there and that we would have to pay for her private insurance just like we have been. And we spent some time in the NICU. And then when Addie went into her heart failure and kidney failure and respiratory failure and everything, and she started getting sick and we went up to the PICU, a social worker came and was like, hey, you are going to, we ended up being life flighted, which is so much money.
Gosh, yeah.
Yes, so much money.
She's $1 million baby, isn't she?
Oh, multi-millions. She's a bougie girl. We joke about it all the time because you gotta deal with the trauma somehow. But a social worker came to us in the PICU and said she qualifies for Medicaid, and we were like, I think we make too much unless something's changed. And they explained to us that in Oregon she qualifies because of Down syndrome, which is amazing. So she'll always have Medicaid unless something drastically changes, knock on wood. But so that's amazing. And that took care of most of our medical debt besides a little bit in the NICU that didn't get back covered, which is, I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
Obviously. Because we would have been, I don't know, we would have lost our home or something crazy. There's no way we could afford all that.
Yeah.
So that was amazing. But Oregon is also the bottom for education in the country. Again, I'd say bottom 5. And off the top of my head, I'm not sure the number. It's so interesting how it's slipped like that.
Yeah.
And then Oregon has a children with exceptional needs program where, if you're familiar, Oregon, Arizona, Colorado, a few other states have paid parent caregiver programs.
Yeah.
Oregon started that during COVID, and they set funds aside for that. And then when the COVID pandemic ended, they said, okay, well, we'll continue this program, but we only have 155 spots for the entire state. So Addie's number 1,648 on the wait list now, years later. It's crazy. It's inequitable. We went to the Capitol last year and spoke to try to pass a law that would change that because the funds are just sitting there unused to do it. And it was shut down. The whole bill was shut down. It's just wild. So it feels like even in a state where they are doing a lot for us, I am very grateful. Addie has had a lot of needs and she's been very taken care of. And we could not afford, in all honesty, a preschool that would accept her and give her all the support she needs, but she qualifies for Head Start. And my son qualifies for Head Start because of disabilities as well. He has a seizure disorder. So they qualify because of that. And going off of that, again, not to get too political, the Head Start funding is at risk right now. Our state's Head Start funding, though, is secured for the following fiscal year still because of Oregon, thankfully. I know that's not the case for thousands of Head Start programs across the country.
Yeah.
Ours is secured, thankfully.
Head Start is, Odin
Yes.
was accepted into it. Head Start, I have such a fond
Yes.
place in my heart for it. He was accepted into a program. We tried daycare when he was really little, and we had to do
you're brave.
immediately because he got sick. And
Mhm.
Odin was a really healthy kid, generally speaking.
Yeah.
But his respiratory
Yeah.
tubes were really small.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
anytime he got sick, it was inflamed and closed up, and it was hard for him to breathe. We had a lot of croup incidents. We've had several emergency room visits, couple visits via ambulance, like scary things.
Yes.
And so we pulled him immediately. We're just like, this is not going to work. They had 6 infants in the room, and most of them, all the time, they were just laying on on the boppies or the pillows, and like he needs to be held upright like most of the day so that can drain. That's not going to help him. So we pulled him. We ended up doing an in-home nanny share. We found a nanny with another family. Just timing worked out lovely. Had to stop that when COVID hit. Nanny couldn't come to the house anymore. And then we did it by ourselves for almost a year. And then I was talking so California has this really neat program where certain diagnoses like Down syndrome automatically qualify you for medical supports and services, including social worker, including getting you therapies. It's all part of the 0 to 3 intervention stuff, but we had it all kind of just, here you go in this nice little package. I made the assumption that states did this, and it's just California. Other states have varying degrees of this, but California kind of is the forefront of, because here's how we set you up. And I got to speak with the social worker about, hey, we're looking for what childcare is going to look like for him, once the pandemic, comes to an end. Actually, no, I don't think that it had hit yet. I think we were talking about it before it hit. And she told us about this Head Start program. She said specifically the program is for kids that have low socioeconomic status families. And so the purpose is to get them supported and caught up. So once they start kindergarten, they're, on even playing field with other kids. However, they hold a spot in each of the classrooms for a kid with developmental disabilities. And so Odin got one of the spots. And he was in there with a teacher who was fluent in sign language, and he flourished.
That's amazing.
Because they signed, and we signed at home. I taught him.
Addie signs too. Yeah.
And it was all day long. And she was teaching the other teachers. She was teaching the other kids. He was so loved in that class. And I remember when we toured, they were doing a little presentation with the kids about their colors, like, oh, which one's brown, which one's blue. And I remember Odin was 18 months at the time. And I was like, he can't, like, how do you explain what brown is? That's so abstract. I remember freaking out in my head about it. He knew by the end of that year, all of his colors, all of his numbers 1 through 10 receptively. He was learning his alphabet. He knew all of his shapes. He had so many words in sign language, and it was all, I 100% credit that class and that setup. And we were so, so lucky for that program.
That is so amazing. Oh my gosh. I love that. I want to kind of get on my soapbox for a second. This is something else I post about a lot on TikTok specifically, is like the untold disability tax, I'll say, because I actually quit my job when Addie was born and we became a 1-income family. That was something that we didn't really feel like we had an option to do because Addie had a long hospital stay in front of her, and she was immunocompromised, and they do also, like you said, have the smaller cavities, get sick easier. And so immediately we took a big financial hit, half of our income.
Yeah.
It was a huge hit. And that's just and either that or you have to figure out a daycare, like you said, which is just so difficult. It's really, really hard.
Yeah.
And especially COVID, I can't even imagine. I will say, when I was a forced stay-at-home parent, I volunteered for the Head Start Parent Council. And in states like California and Oregon, and a lot of other states where minimum wage is a lot higher than the federal minimum wage, I don't know what either of the states are. I think Oregon's is like $15-ish. California's is probably similar. I'm not positive.
Yeah, I don't.
I don't know either, but the federal minimum wage is like $7.25 or something. Again, I'm probably off, but something like that.
It's very
It's
low.
appallingly low.
Yeah.
And in Oregon and California, if you make that amount, you are making not enough to live. It's just like if you work, you're probably making more than that because it's so abysmally low. So I know that in Oregon, and I have to assume that California is similar, we have all these because Head Start is federally funded to go based off the federal poverty line.
Yeah.
But almost everybody makes a little bit more than that unless they're unemployed completely or minimally employed for outside reasons. Um, so we have all these different qualifying reasons like disabilities and all these other things that allow kids to enter. And we have a higher threshold for that than other states that do have a minimum wage that is around $7-8. So like kids with disabilities, kids with two parent separate households, kids with parents who smoke, kids whose parents were in foster care, kids whose parents have been in jail. I think that even having a sibling who's medically complex is one, like that would have been a qualifier for Liam, my other son, even though he had his own things going on, so he qualified. There's all these other accommodations because the point of Head Start, and again, this isn't really a question, it's just me putting this out there because I'm really passionate about Head Start. The point of Head Start, like you said, perfectly is to put kids on an even playing field by the time kindergarten comes.
Yeah.
And in some states, that looks like kids that just don't have enough economic support, financial support.
Right.
And in some states, it looks like kids who have difficulties and challenges for other reasons. And Head Start is vital.
Yeah.
Vital. Because like you said, Odin was flourishing by the end of it. Addie loves school. She is obsessed with school. Like, she is just doing so well. We were so scared. Addie had never been in daycare, never been out of our sight, basically. When she started preschool, we were terrified, and she is thriving. Head Start is just so amazing. So that's all.
No, I mean, it's totally a valid. I'm glad you guys have had such a good experience.
Yes.
I wish I could, ooh and ah over our program. That was another reason why we moved, was because he was going to age out. We were going to lose that
Yes.
teacher. I didn't know what the other programs were going to look like. And there was a school, well, there is a school here in Austin called the Rise School. And it's, my friend helped me find it. She was like, well, what do you need to move out here? And I said, we need a school for Odin.
Yeah.
He found it. It is a private school. It's not free by any stretch. It's a very expensive preschool, but it's fully inclusive.
Wow.
They accept kids. 50% of their population are kids with disabilities of different kinds, medical, physical, and mental health disabilities, and not mental health, cognitive disabilities. And 50% of the kids are neurotypical. And
That's amazing.
They have therapists on staff. So they do group therapy supports and activities. All of the curriculum is built around how to be inclusive, how to make sure everyone has access to the materials equally and equitably. It's a really, really great program. There's several in Texas. There's one in Dallas. There's one in Houston. There's one in Austin. Oh, they just opened one in San Antonio. So that's spreading in Texas. The original one, I think, was in Alabama. And I know there's one in Colorado. So there's the concept of the Rise School is spreading. There's not enough of the Rise School to go around.
Yeah. That's amazing though.
There's way more need than they can fill, their spots. But that was the other reason why we moved, was that school existed, and we're like, let's get him in that program.
That is amazing. And I mean, like you said, it's very great that you're able to afford that and do that, but that's a disability tax. It's just something that you have to pay more for, or you choose to pay more for to help give your son an even playing field. It's just,
and not everyone has access to that.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so hard to, what's the word I'm looking for? To mesh those things together in your head sometimes. It's like, this is amazing, I can give this to my kid, and also it's so unfair that I'm able to give this to my kid and other people aren't. It's just, it's hard to deal with. So I'll get off my soapbox now, but
it's a good soapbox.
It's something that I think about way too often, I'd say. Okay, I'll move on to a different topic though. So if you could give advice to a parent that's just starting this journey, what would you tell them?
Oh, it's such a good question. I think, I've shared this, and I do a lot of blog posts. And part of that is my own processing, like my feelings as they come up and things that happen. But one of the things that I really stand by is this journey is a one day at a time. You do not need to learn all the things at once. You're not going to learn all the things at once. And so take it one step at a time. Because we get thrown new information, we get thrown new medical issues or new diagnoses. changes with therapists, people come and go, policies change, government changes. Like, there's just always going to be something new that's thrown our way. And so don't have the expectation to know it all immediately.
Yeah.
Be open to learning, be open to hearing feedback. The other thing that I would say is probably key and vital is having some sense of community, your village, whether that's your immediate family, if they get it and they understand and they can support you in the way you need. It might be other parents who've been on the journey and get it in a different way that other people can't. Really connecting with your spouse, significant other, or other close loved ones that can support you, to have a place to vent. And if none of that exists, finding mental health support, having a safe space where you can talk and process and cry, and be overwhelmed and be anxious, and it's okay to be in all those feelings, and that you can process through it so we don't get to stay stuck in it, because the being stuck in it, I think, is the hardest part.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. That's great advice. Do you think that, I'm trying to think of how I want to phrase this. Do you think that enough parents in the disability community, you might want to rephrase how I'm asking this, but I'll let you decide. Do you think that enough parents in the disability community are utilizing mental health resources as they should? That's something that I recommend to everybody if I can.
Yeah.
But do you think that enough of us are utilizing that and taking care of ourselves?
Yeah. I would say no, but I would say even more so globally to just parents in general aren't receiving enough
Good point.
support. When COVID hit and I was in my online birth group, there was one other mom that I was connecting with who was also a therapist. And we were talking about the stress and the weight and the heaviness, because at the time vaccines didn't exist. And I think everyone was really, really scared about how susceptible our kids were going to be to COVID. I don't think a lot of people had contracted it yet. And so there was a lot of big worries and fears. And so I remember we were talking about, like, how do we support the parents? I know to some degree our kids need the support, but the parents, our kids are so young. How are the parents getting supported? And I remember we reached out to the admin with DSDN, Jen Jacobs at the time, and said, how can we give this support? How can we offer this resource? It's a needed and under given service and support. There's a lot of issues with doing that on a national level, because mental health support, you can only do it within the state that you're licensed.
Yes.
So we couldn't do national or international supports legally, and ethically. So there were a lot of challenges with that. But to slide into that, I held on to that memory of just like, I know there's parents that need the support. They need that safe space. They need someone to talk to. And, if a parent is choosing between, how am I going to take care of myself mentally with my mental health, or am I going to take care of my children's therapies and services? 99% of the time, they're going to choose their kids' needs. It's just
Of
what
course.
they do.
Yes.
And so I wanted to try and find a way to get that need met that also allows me to be, following my licensing guidelines. So I have partnered with my local org here in Central Texas to offer mental health supports to parents of kids with Down syndrome. And my local org has been amazing with supporting me with this. I broached them with this idea 2 years ago, almost exactly 2 years ago, and said, I would like to start a parent support group specifically for the new parents, kids, either they're pregnant or brand new kids up to like age 3, and talk about this stage of the journey. The processing, dealing with the grief, working through all the things, dealing with learning patience, learning to advocate for yourself with the parent, with the doctors, with teachers, with that whole journey that happens that we often just deal with alone and isolated because we don't know otherwise. And also building a sense of community. So now they're connecting with other local parents who have kids around the same age. So we've done that group a couple times. We're offering it yearly. And then this fall, I'm in the middle of doing this. I realized I've taken in a lot of information and resources. I just love gathering all this. And so I've created a parent support series for parents of older kids, elementary to like teenage years, with a bunch of different topics. And so it's less of a support group and more of just like an informational, here's some resources, here's some ideas, but it's also with the intent of building community with like, hey, here's another parent who's dealing with the same thing you are. You guys can talk. Here's a space to talk about it and share ideas. So I'm running that as well.
You really buried the lead. That's amazing. Wow. Okay. Then that's local to you in Austin, but it's like Texas based, right?
Yeah. So it's Central Texas. So it's housed in Austin, but it's spread out quite a bit to cover like surrounding areas. Families are, a good 2 hours from each other at the ends of the area.
That is amazing.
And it's all virtual, which I didn't want at first. I wanted to be in person because it's more powerful. But travel, babysitters, like your schedules, that became really difficult. So it's virtual, so parents can attend. The really nice thing is because this support group that I'm doing for the older kids isn't meant to be therapy, we've opened it up to people to attend. I'm actually hosting a potty training one tonight, and I shared it on my page just to kind of get a little bit of like attention, and I've had like 80 people respond. So I don't know how many people are going to show up, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
What time is it tonight?
It's tonight, Central Standard Time, 7 p.m.
That's amazing. Okay. I'll try to promote that if I can. If you want me to, I mean, of course.
I mean, it's super last minute. I do plan on hosting these again in the future. If my local org is willing to expand this to like who wants to come, I think more people to get the information, the better, right? Like let's share the resources.
That is so cool. Addie has started. I take no credit for this. I did not do this because my 4-year-old still isn't totally potty trained. He does not like going number 2.
Yeah.
Anyways, but Addie has started peeing in the toilet. I don't know. I didn't do it. I take 0 credit. She just started signing potty and then started taking off her diaper and doing it. So
that's amazing.
That's just dumb luck. That was not my parenting. I realized we chit-chatted for so long, so I've got a couple last questions for you. I could go on all day, I feel like, but I won't. So what do you do to take care of yourself? So I know you have a lot to do taking care of other people, both professionally and at home as a mom and as a disability parent. What do you do to take care of yourself?
So my self-care, advice for people when you're looking for something for self-care, it's something that feeds you. So it doesn't have to be indulging in expensive things. It's just something that feeds you emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, whatever. I have started working out more, which has been really helpful. That starts my day. I was not big into physical exercise. Now I've gotten older, I realized I need to take care of myself. So that's one. The thing that feeds me a lot, though, is my creative energy. So doing the videos, the advocacy videos, a couple years ago, I did I don't know if you ever saw the characteristics of Down syndrome, the little
yes. Yeah.
I started that.
Did you?
Yeah.
I have shared that every year. I've done Addie ones I've done TikToks and graphics. Oh my goodness. That's so I'm talking to a celebrity.
I can't take it for the original one. The original one was created by the Pearson Foundation. But
the really offensive one, yeah.
No. It was the regular one with all the little arrows.
Oh, okay.
But I saw it and I was like, I want to put Odin in that. And so I created my own using the same like characteristics of Down syndrome and then put Odin's picture in there. That's amazing. All my mom's friends were like, I want one. And so I created over 1,000. Like I had so many requests for those and it went viral. And then from then, Facebook got rid of the profile pictures that you could personalize. So I started creating Facebook profile pictures and that's taken off. So I do, between 400 to 800 every year for Down Syndrome Awareness Month and World Down Syndrome Day. So those take off as well.
And you're talking about the frames that go like around the pictures you already have as your profile to celebrate, like they have holiday ones and stuff. You've done one for me before too. Yeah.
Yeah. So the creative outlets, I draw, I do portraits. I haven't really advertised that for a while because I do not have the space to sit down and do a drawing, but that feeds me. Really anything that I can do that's kind of creative, that helps my own self-care because I'm giving back to myself in a way that allows me to pour into my kids later on.
That's amazing. I love that. And then if you could tell us one thing, and I know this is so hard as a parent, one amazing thing about Odin that you just love and love to share with people, what would it be?
It's so cliche because people fight this myth all the time, but he's the happiest person I've ever met. He really is. And everyone comments on it. And he's not always happy. to the myth, I will say that he's not always happy. But what I have argued in relation to that myth is that I believe our kids, when they feel an emotion, they feel it with their whole body. So when they're happy, their whole body's happy. When they're upset, their whole body's upset. So they're kind of the extreme embodiment of those emotions when they're feeling them. For the most part, he is a very, very happy kid. He has the best smile. Everyone has given that feedback. Like, his smile just lights up the room, and people like love his smile. So that's my favorite thing about him, is just his energy, his way that he shows up every day. He's excited. When I go pick him up from school, he runs and gives me a huge hug. He's happy to see me. Like, he is just a happy kid.
I love that. Yes, that is a myth about Down syndrome, that people with Down syndrome are always happy, and of course that's not true, but I'm so glad that Odin mostly is.
Yes.
That's awesome. Okay, Stephanie, thank you so much for talking with me today. To all my listeners, if you've made it this far along in the podcast, please follow on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, leave me 5 stars, and share this with a friend or two. Also, follow on social media. My TikToks are at The Inclusion Effect and at Uplife of Addie. And I also have an Instagram and Facebook at The Inclusion Effect. Thank you so much for everyone for helping me build this community of passionate advocates. Stephanie, where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook. That's where I spend most of my time with social media, at Stephanie Ann. And if you want, Anna and I are friends on Facebook. So if you want to search for friends, that might be the easiest way to connect with me.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much, Stephanie. It was great talking with you.
You too. Thank you.
Yeah.